We're all here.
We're live.
Sergeant, you
Yeah,
can
it's
begin
good
your
now.
feed.
Okay, so that's why.
Farming live stream is up and running.
Sergeants, please start the recordings.
PC recording is underway.
Cloud recording is up.
Good morning. Welcome to New York City Council's remote stated meeting. Everyone, please turn on your videos at this time. Silence all electronic devices. Thank you. Majority Leader Powers, we're ready to begin.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the recessed stated meeting of May 19th, 2022, now held on May 26th, 2022. We're going to start off with the roll call.
Abreu,
Present.
Ariola,
Present.
Aviles,
Present.
Ayala,
Present.
Barron, Councilmember Barron,
Here.
thank you.
Yeah, I talked to him.
Wait, I need to.
Botcher,
Did you call my name?
I did. Botcher, Brannon,
Here.
Brewer,
Here.
Brooks Powers,
Present.
Caban,
Present.
Carr,
Present.
De La Rosa,
Here.
Dinowitz,
Here.
Farias,
Present.
Felice,
Present.
Gennaro,
Here.
Gutierrez,
Presente.
Hanif,
Here.
Hanks,
Present.
Holden,
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Joseph,
Here.
Kagan,
Here.
Krishnan, Lee,
Present.
Lewis,
Present.
Marte,
Present.
Mealy,
Present.
Menon,
Present.
Moya,
Present.
Narcisse, Nurse,
Good morning, present.
Osei,
Présent.
Palladino,
Present.
Wrestler,
Here. Sorry about that.
Richardson Jordan,
Here.
Riley,
Present.
Rivera, Salamanca,
Present.
Sanchez, Shulman,
Here.
Stevens,
Here. Present.
Velasquez,
Present.
Vernikoff,
Present.
Williams,
Present.
Juan,
Present.
Yeager,
Here.
Borelli,
Present.
Powers,
Here.
Speaker Adams.
Present.
Mr. Majority Leader, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. The recess meeting of May 19th is hereby adjourned. And we're now going to open the May 26, 2022 stated meeting. I'm the Majority Leader, Keith Powers. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today. And if you're following along, the agenda for today's meeting is posted on our website.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I believe now we have to do another roll call. So I'll call for another roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, Abreu,
Aye.
Ariola,
Here.
Aviles,
Yes, here.
thank you,
Aye.
Ayala,
Present.
Barron,
Here.
Butcher, Brannan,
Still here.
Brewer.
Here.
Brooks Powers. Councilmember Brooks Powers.
Yes.
Thank you. Kaban,
Present.
Carr,
Present.
Della Rosa,
Here.
Dinowitz,
Here.
Farias,
Still present.
Felice,
Present.
Gennaro,
Here.
Gutierrez,
Present.
Hanif,
I'm here.
Hanks,
Present.
Holden,
Here.
Hudson,
Hi, I'm sorry, is this attendance?
roll call, second roll call.
Oh, second roll call. Okay, Hudson, present.
Thank you. Joseph,
Present.
Kagan,
Present.
Krishnan,
Here.
Lee,
Present.
Lewis, Marte,
Here.
Mealy,
Present.
Menon,
Present.
Moya,
Present.
Narcisse, Nurse,
Present.
Jose,
Present.
Palladino,
Present.
Wrestler,
Present. Sorry.
thank you. Richardson Jordan,
Here.
Riley,
Present.
Rivera,
Present.
Salamanca,
Present.
Sanchez,
Present.
Schulman,
Here.
Stevens,
Here. Present.
Velasquez,
Present.
Vernikov,
Present.
Williams,
I'm here.
Juan,
Present.
Yeager,
Here.
Borelli,
I'm still here.
Powers,
I am here and I wanted to just check, did you get Councilmember Botcher, or if not, could you call him again?
sure, Botcher,
I heard him, he said present.
thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. Speaker Adams,
Present.
Mr. Majority Leader, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We're gonna now go to the invocation,
None.
adoption of minutes,
None.
messages and papers from the mayor,
None.
communication from city, county, and borough offices,
None.
petitions and communications,
None.
land use call-ups.
None.
Thank you. We're now gonna have communication from Speaker Adrian Adams.
Thank you, Majority Leader, and good morning, everyone. Before we continue with today's agenda, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the violence that our city and our nation have been subjected to in the past several days. I know this has an impact on all of us, our constituents, and people across the country. New York City, like many cities across the nation, has experienced increased violence during the pandemic, community and interpersonal violence, hate violence, and other forms. As I said during my State of the City address, communities are traumatized. We must focus on addressing this trauma that leaves people less healthy and stable, allows cycles of violence to continue, and too often we don't focus attention on supporting communities and survivors of violence in their recovery. Last Sunday, we lost Daniel Enriquez to a senseless shooting on the subway. Our city continues to mourn his loss, and we send our most heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, co-workers, and community during this difficult time. There's more that must be done to prevent violence before it occurs, whether it's on our subways, our streets, or anywhere else in this city. Our safety solutions have to be as comprehensive and multifaceted as the underlying drivers of violence. Our country was still reeling from the racist mass shooting in Buffalo that killed 10 people when we learned not much longer than 36 hours ago about a sickening tragedy in Uvalde, Texas. 19 children in an elementary school were killed. 2 teachers trying to protect their students were killed, sacrificing their lives to protect those they teach. Yet another incident of mass violence by someone who had easy access to a military-style firearm to inflict destruction. Again, a community stricken by grief. Parents forced to live out their worst nightmares, wondering if their children were still alive. When is enough going to be enough? When are those in our federal government who've been resistant to doing anything going to finally realize that something needs to change to prevent us from losing our children? It hasn't even been 10 years since the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. We can't be numb to these shootings. We can't accept this as normal. The continued inaction in the face of such horror is a complete failure of leadership and morality. We must end this irrational proliferation of guns and access to weapons of death for people who want to inflict harm on others. It is literally killing our children and our families. We have to say more. If not now, I don't know what it's going to take or when there will be action to enact sensible gun laws at the federal level. We will do all that we can right here, but the issue of guns and gun-related deaths are in the hands of Congress. We've needed action for far too long. It's time for leaders in Washington, D.C. to demonstrate that they care about protecting our children, our families, our communities, so these preventable acts of mass violence do not continue. Let us pause for a moment of silence to honor Daniel Enriquez, as well as all of those precious children and the teachers that were killed in Texas. And let us not forget the communities suffering from trauma of all of this horrible violence. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our agenda. Today, we will be voting on 8 home rule messages in support of state legislation on a variety of topics. The first home rule message supports Senate Bill 5602-B, Assembly Bill 6681, which would continue the city's speed camera program. The program is set to expire on July 1st, 2022, and currently these cameras are only permitted to operate on weekdays before the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. School zone speed cameras have been proven to reduce dangerous speeding on our streets that can too often have deadly consequences. The home rule we're voting on today would renew authorization for the program through July 1st, 2025, while allowing the cameras to operate and issue violations 24 hours a day. The second home rule message supports Senate Bill 3259, Assembly Bill 3817, which aims to combat the parking of large tractor trailers on streets in residential neighborhoods. This is a problem that impacts residents' quality of life, despite an existing prohibition in local law. The state legislation would increase the penalty for the first violation from $250 to $400 and from $500 to $800 for all subsequent violations in a 6-month period. The third home rule message supports Senate Bill 1608 and Assembly Bill 4006, which improves our civil service system and ensures that supervisors at the Department of Sanitation are determined by merit and fitness for the position. General Superintendents 2 and 3 at DSNY are currently selected through a recommendation process. This state legislation would alter the promotion process to be determined by a competitive civil service exam. The fourth home rule message supports Senate Bill 9125 and Assembly Bill 10373, which aims to incentivize experienced police officers to remain members of the department for their entire career. The state legislation would increase the salary base used to calculate pension benefits for first-grade police officers who have served for 25 or 30 years. The fifth home rule message supports Senate Bill 9327, Assembly Bill 10360, which restores the right to take out pension loans. This state legislation would permit certain members of the New York City Police Pension Fund to borrow from contributions, consistent with existing law that allows members of the state and local employee retirement system to do the same. The sixth home rule message supports Senate Bill 9068B and Assembly Bill 10285, which authorizes the city to discontinue the use of a portion of real property as parkland. It would allow the MTA to make handicapped accessible improvements and upgrades to the 168th Street Transit Station in Councilmember De La Rosa's district. Any construction or disruption made on the existing parkland will be temporary and made whole at the completion of the project. The seventh home rule message supports Senate Bill 9120A, Assembly Bill 10443, which authorizes the city to discontinue the use of a portion of real property as parkland to bring Metro North Railroad service to 4 new stations in the Bronx and to Penn Station in Manhattan. This project would impact the districts of Councilmember Salamanca and Velasquez. Finally, the 8th Home Rule message supports Senate Bill 9323A and Assembly Bill 10449, which authorizes the city to allow temporary and permanent use of parkland property in Brooklyn for improvements to the Broadway Junction transit station. The MTA will redesign the entire station for ADA compliance and to create a continuous connection for park users and pedestrians that does not exist today. This concludes our agenda. I now turn it back to you, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are now going to head into general orders. If you would like to speak on an item on today's agenda, you can raise your hand in the chat and we will, or on the Zoom, we'll call on you. So I'll give people a second to raise their hand. And I know Councilmember Abreu had asked as well to sign up. So we'll go to Councilmember Abreu and then we'll go to the hands.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today we'll be voting on 8 home rules passed this morning out of the State and Federal Legislation Committee, which I proudly chair. They call on the state to pass and the governor to sign legislation to deter trucks from parking on residential streets overnight, authorize our speed camera program for 24 hours a day, improve the civil service promotion system, bolster pensions, and improve accessibility at public subway stations. These home rules support legislation that would bring much needed safety improvements to our streets. 24-hour speed cameras are shown to reduce speeding and traffic casualties. They would make it safer to live in the city, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or a driver. Trucks the size of transformers are also producing excessive noise, pollution, and traffic in our residential neighborhoods. It's time to protect our neighbors by deterring trucks from parking overnight. I join my colleagues from around the city, especially those from outside Manhattan, who have made their voices clear on this. These home rules call for a change, and I urge my colleagues to support them. I'd like to thank Speaker Adams and Special Counsel Carlos Beato, who has been extremely helpful. Additionally, I'd like to thank committee staff Jay Street Ganapathy, William Diori, Hector Helman, and my Deputy Chief of Staff, Jalissa Quigley. Majority Leader, back to you.
Thank you. We're going to now hear from Councilmember Barron.
Thank you very much, my colleagues. First, I want to criticize the speaker and criticize this process. I'm sick and tired of getting bills like 10 minutes before the meeting and going over them the very last minute. I think that this is part of a strategy. A lot of people don't get a chance to read and study these bills, but I will, and trying to encourage our colleagues that when you hear parkland alienation, our city is being overdeveloped and we're losing a lot of open space, and there's important park space. Parkland is very, very important. So alienating parkland and allowing other things to develop might in fact improve in some of those areas. But what it's taken away from is the green space, the open space. It's something mentally healthy for people to not run into buildings and trains and tracks and see some greenery, particularly when you're in urban settings like ours. So when I was in the State Assembly, every time I saw the alienation of parkland, that means that we'll have less land for developing parks, which is critical for our environmental development. And I'm also voting no on the 2 police pension bills. Police have been getting away with a lot of things in this city with a bloated budget, with police brutality and killings without any penalties or consequences. And so as much as I have a heart for their families, but when it comes to the police, they just get away with everything. And so I'll be voting no on the 2 police pension bills and no on the 3 park alienation bills. And let's get this stuff earlier, much earlier, so we can study it, go over it, have some conversations with each other, instead of, I'm talking to folk all the time and they say, what's this bill about? What's that about? Is it just coming the last minute? And I don't know that that is
time expired.
Thank you. We're going to go to Majority Whip, Brooks Powers, followed by Councilmember Dinowitz.
Time starts now.
Thank you for that. I'd like to speak briefly in support of SLR 6, which will call on the state government to extend our city's speed camera program for another 3 years and allow us to operate them 24/7. We have seen over 80 traffic deaths in 2022 so far. These deaths are unacceptable and preventable, and we must be able to use the tools at our disposal to curb this horrible trend. That's why the City Council is taking action today to send a clear message to Albany. We really need to pass a home rule resolution to empower our abilities to keep the streets safer. And this is one of many ways that we can do this. We have to do our best to make sure that we are keeping our most vulnerable New Yorkers safer. And SLR 7 is also on our agenda today, which will ramp up financial penalties for overnight truck parking, which is a longstanding issue in my district. I'm committed to working with our partners across the city and state governments, as well as the advocates, to find a sustainable long-term solution, identifying feasible truck parking areas and improving enforcement. I'd also like to highlight my support for the 3 messages which will call on the state to permit vital new construction work and easements, bringing new Metro North stations to the Bronx, accessibility upgrades to the 168th Street subway station in Upper Manhattan, and new pedestrian features to Broadway Junction. These bills will begin the important work of expanding our transit network and making it more accessible. I'd also like to thank Madam Speaker and the staff for the work that they've put around this, because as we know, when we do these home rule bills to try and coincide with Albany, we sometimes do not get as much time, but we were able to conference these issues. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for it.
Thank you. And I'll go to Councilmember Dinowitz, followed by Councilmember De La Rosa.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I want to quickly encourage everybody here to vote in favor of the expansion of speed cameras. It is one tool in our arsenal that can save lives. Expanding the number of hours that they are in effect is extremely important to all of us in the city and to keeping us safe, if proven to reduce speed and to save lives. And I also want to take a moment to thank the speaker. I think in contrast to at least one of my colleagues here, there was an extensive amount of work and communication done, especially around the speed camera bill. There were a number of concerns my colleagues had about it. We met with the staff a number of times. The Bronx delegation, we requested data. That data was provided for us, and they were extremely responsive to our needs as a delegation, our needs as a membership. And that is not even to mention the amount of work that they did collaborating with our colleagues in Albany, in the Albany team. So, Madam Speaker, and to everyone on the team, to Carlos and Megan, thank you for the amount of work you did, for the amount of collaboration you did, the amount of communication that you all did in making, in listening to our needs and being responsive to our needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to Councilmember De La Rosa, followed by Councilmember Lee.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I just briefly wanted to touch on pre-considered SLR 10, which deals with the alienation of property on 168th Street. Just so that the colleagues understand what we're alienating here, what we're alienating is a portion of a median on the street, a crossing medium that the MTA needs in order to create an easement, in order to make the 168th Street station in my district accessible. It is one of the deepest stations in the city of New York. And as if y'all ever been uptown, you know the topography in my community is hills up, hills down. And so we have naturally reoccurring retirement communities, elderly people who use walkers, wheelchairs, the disabled community, as well as mothers with strollers. Facilitating the process for this station to become accessible will change the quality of life of my constituents. And I want to thank the Speaker's office for her leadership on this, making sure that in a short time frame we were able to get this done, as well as my colleagues in Albany who today will be taking up this legislation, and Chair Abreu who so swiftly passed this through his committee. This will be a life changer for the residents of my district. I love parkland. I'm usually opposed to alienations, but in this case, it will tremendously impact the lives of the residents of my district. So thank you so much, colleagues, for the support today.
Thank you. We're going to hear from Councilmember Lee, followed by Councilmember Hanks.
Time starts now.
Hi, thank you, everyone. I want to express my support for SLR 6, which is for the speed cameras. And I know that this bill is a result of a long debate about how to protect New Yorkers from illegal, dangerous speeding that has claimed dozens of lives each year. And throughout the process, I want to thank the Speaker also for having to balance competing needs and for listening to our voices, like Eric Dinowitz has said, my colleague has said. And we know that speed cameras are proven to reduce speeding and save lives, but at the same time, for example, in my district, we are a transit desert, and most residents rely on cars to get around. So some of the measures that were initially proposed would have disproportionately impacted us and resulted in constituents losing their licenses and even going to jail. And I believe the bill that's before us today, which allows for cameras to operate 24/7 while requiring mandatory signage at any camera locations, does adequately address the most egregious culprits without disproportionately impacting Eastern Queens or criminalizing how we get around. So thank you so much, Speaker, as well as Chair Abreu, for your leadership. And I also wanted to encourage my colleagues to support SLR 7, which is the fines on the commercial tractor trailers, which are illegally parked overnight. And we know this is a big issue across our city. And I recognize that increasing fines alone will not address the city's lack of infrastructure for trucks who deliver around 90% of the goods transported across the city. That's why I, along with my other colleagues, call on the city to increase the availability of truck parking and other infrastructure to provide truckers somewhere safe to rest between shifts. At the same time, we need a real deterrent for bad actors who continue to park in our residential neighborhoods. And as it stands, it's cheaper to risk getting a parking ticket each month than to rent one of the few spaces still available in the city. So I encourage all my colleagues to support this, and thank you so much for allowing me this time.
Thank you. We're going to go to Councilmember Hanks, followed by Councilmember Kagan.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Speaker Adams and Majority Leader Powers. Today, I would like to speak on two pieces of state legislation that I encourage my colleagues to support. First is S 3259, which would increase the fines for tractor trailers that park on residential streets overnight and would amend the state law to give the city, New York City's Parking Violations Bureau, the authority to impose such penalties. In my district in the North Shore, and in many of my colleagues' districts across the 5 boroughs, illegally parked tractor trailers continuously create hazardous conditions for residents who drive, walk, or bike in neighborhoods in which they are parked. My office consistently hears from constituents who have difficulty seeing oncoming traffic because of illegally parked trucks that reduce visibility. By increasing penalties and adding in an enforcement aspect, this bill will make our streets and neighborhoods safer, which is a top priority for me. Illegally parked trucks and tractor trailers are a matter of public safety and affect everyone's quality of life. And I hope that the council will continue to support these efforts to hold those breaking the laws accountable. Second is S 562B, which would renew the authorization for the city speed camera program through July 1st, 2025. Allows speed cameras to issue violations outside of school hours and would require signage, which is extremely important, indicating the presence of speed cameras, as my colleagues had stated, to accompany speed limit signs at camera locations. As we all know, traffic violence is a major citywide issue around schools, and this legislation will deter speeding and unsafe driving practices by clearly notifying drivers before entering a speed zone. This will be an extra measure toward protecting the safety of our pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. This bill will encourage safer driving and provide a better alternative to drivers than receiving a speeding ticket from a police officer, which would result in increased fine and points in their license. I also want to say that we lost a 1-year-old girl. She was killed about 3 hours ago by getting hit by a truck, by a car on Staten Island, and we pray for her family. I would encourage all of my colleagues to support me in these two pieces of legislation. And thank you very much to the speaker and to Chair Abreu.
Thank you, Councilor Hanks. We'll now hear from Councilor Kagan, followed by Councilmember Krishnan.
Time starts now.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. First, I would like to speak about SLR 6 legislation home rule regarding speed cameras. I still believe this is that speeding cameras are not the most effective tool of fighting traffic fatalities. I believe that stop signs, speed bumps, and crosswalks, etc., are more effective. And also with modern devices installed in cars, the drivers can slow down near the speed cameras and then to continue to speed with unlimited speed. But I reluctantly decided to vote for it because I was assured that first of all, there would be no escalation of fines. There would be no additional cameras. It will be existing speed cameras just 24/7. And I also was assured that we will do a lot to improve other measures which are necessary, in my opinion, to improve our street safety in particular. I believe it is absurd that DOT needs 36 months for a traffic study to install a new stop sign or crosswalk, like in our area in Coney Island at Surf Avenue and West 37th Street between two senior centers. DOT is asking for 36 more months to investigate whether they need any kind of crosswalk or stop sign. I also support SLR 8 pension benefits for our brave police officers who risk their lives every single day to protect our safety. And finally, I will vote for SLR 7, which is very important in terms of truck trailers. It's a huge problem for my district, especially Neptune Avenue in Coney Island. It's basically at this point a cemetery for all kinds of trucks and truck trailers, not just overnight, but even during the daytime. Something should be done, and I support escalating fines for these violations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'll go to Councilmember Krishnan, followed by Councilmember Nurse.
Time starts now.
Thank you so much, Majority Leader. I wanted to speak out in favor of Resolution SLR 6 regarding speed cameras and make very clear, we know in the city we are losing lives of children, neighbors, seniors every day, every week to traffic violence in the city. We know that traffic violence, along with gun violence, as we saw so heartbreakingly this week, are two of the leading causes of death of children across our country, not just in New York City. This is an issue of pedestrian safety that is urgent in our city. As a father of two small children who walks my kids to school every morning, I hold their hands so tight when I cross the street because we know that the streets around our schools are some of the most dangerous streets in our entire city, especially in communities of color. Earlier this morning, along with other council colleagues, I stood outside with several parents from Families for Safe Streets who have lost children or spouses due to traffic violence in our city as well. The data is clear that speed cameras are an essential piece of keeping our streets and our communities safe, especially for our most vulnerable. And so I would urge all my colleagues to vote in favor of this resolution. I certainly will be doing so. It is time, it is way beyond time that we are serious about addressing traffic safety in our city, and we are serious about protecting the lives of our children. If this past week has shown at all, as it shows over and over again, we must do all we can to protect the lives of our children in every respect. I want to thank Speaker Adrienne Adams and her team for allowing for robust discussion for weeks, as Councilmember Dinowitz mentioned as well, on this issue as far as speed cameras go, and giving us the opportunity to have a full discussion about these issues before today's vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go to Councilor Nurse and finally followed by Minority Leader Joe Brown.
Time starts now.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'll just keep it short. I just wanted to really advocate for yes on the Broadway Junction piece. As many of you know, the escalators never work. I walk up and down those steps, and we really need those 7 elevators that are going to go in there. And Parks has demapped a street that goes through the park to make up the space. So really just asking for a yes on that. Thank you all.
Thank you. And finally, we'll go to Minority Leader Joe Borelli, followed by Councilmember Bob Holden.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I know some of my colleagues will be voting no on speed cameras, and I'll let them speak in more detail. I think that we should be focusing more on some of the problems and some of the solutions, rather, that are better and seemingly take longer by the Department of Transportation to ever implement, meaning traffic stop signs, traffic lights, speed bumps, and so forth. I do want to offer my support for the tractor and trailer bill. This is an issue in Queens. I know the sponsor is State Senator Comrie, and he's worked very hard on this issue. And he's right, and we have the same issue in Staten Island, as Councilmember Hanks brought up. But I want to address something that the first council member who spoke said about the time it takes to see bills and get bills briefed on bills. Unfortunately, for some people, that requires you to actually follow the council's website and maybe maintain relationships with colleagues in the state Senate, members of your own party. Part of being a council member is actually having your ear to the ground on what legislation is working through Albany and likely to come to us. So I don't think it's fair to criticize the staff here in the council for working pretty hard with our partners in Albany on trying to get these home rule messages done. I don't think it's a fair criticism. I don't think it's a fair criticism to criticize the park alienation bill when, if the council member had just read the bill and looked at it and got to know the issue like anyone else, you would have saw that we're talking about a center median, alienating a tiny piece of greenway, a center median, so that elevators can be installed in a subway station next to a hospital. And with respect to park alienation, we know that the replacement park is actually going to be nearby and larger than whatever was taken. So it's just absurd to me to have heard that on both of those counts. And I wish we could all do a better job following legislation and just doing the work of a city council member. Thank you.
Councilman Borelli, those bills are also part of our discussion at Democratic Conference this week. When I go to Councilmember Holden.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I'd like to echo my colleagues, Councilmember Dinowitz and Borelli's comments about the legislative process, especially on the bills before us today. The Queens delegation had a long and productive meeting, especially on the speed cameras. The Speaker's office was very open and transparent on these bills. It's important that the cameras are active, especially at night, which I've been pushing for, because that's when you hear, in my neighborhood at least, when you hear, it sounds like the Indy 500 with cars speeding around the neighborhood. And so, you know, I've had 9 pedestrians unfortunately killed in my district in just over 2 years. And we have to do something to stop this. And I call for more police enforcement, especially of speeding, which we don't have enough of. But like I said, my neighborhood and many neighborhoods around the city, that's all you hear at night. When you put your head on the pillow, you hear cars racing around the community. So, you know, I urge the NYPD, though, and the governor and the mayor's office to crack down on vehicles that obstruct their license plates. And we have a lot of those. So you see a lot of the guys breaking the law, and you look at their license plate and they have something over it, or it's obstructed with some device. So let's work on that. Let's try to catch the real offenders. But I'm going to vote for the legislation today, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. And I go to Councilmember Yeager.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to echo what some of my colleagues earlier mentioned. The minority leader was right all across the board, but also Councilmember Kagan, who came to a different conclusion than I, hit it on the head. DOT doesn't provide the very basic traffic safety measures that we need in our neighborhood. I agree. We have to do everything we can to stop traffic deaths. We have traffic crashes, anything that causes a life to be lost. We have an obligation as a government to stop it. Speed cams don't stop. What they do is they bill you for it after the fact. So the 36-mile-an-hour motorist at 3 in.the morning and the 96-mile-an-hour motorist that Councilman Holden was referring to, I have those in my district as well, get the same bill in the mail, a month later. The difference being, of course, that the 36-mile-an-hour motorist probably has a lawfully registered vehicle and will get the bill and pay it, whereas the 96-mile-an-hour motorist probably has fake paper tags and won't get a bill and won't pay it. Speed cams send a bill after the fact that may or may not be paid. You want to stop traffic deaths, you want to stop incidents of cars and pedestrians coming into contact, do the real things. Give council members who ask for a traffic signal a traffic signal. Give them that traffic signal. Don't make them wait 3 years and then tell them no. Give them the speed bump when a community board and a council member asks for it. Don't make them wait 2 to 3 years and then say no, or then say we'll study it. Don't wait 3 years to do a traffic study and then come back and say we're still looking into it. A stop sign should be easy. It should take a week to get it done. These are simple fixes that will legitimately, before the speeding actually happens, stop the speeding. The city won't do that because it doesn't raise money from that. This is a revenue enhancement. And when I go back to my neighborhood and tell them about this bill, and they ask me if I were to vote yes, why? I would not be able to give them an honest answer if I say that it's to prevent incidents of traffic crashes. I would simply have to say it's about revenue. So I'm not going to be able to vote yes for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands, just looking to see if anybody else puts their hand up. We can now move in. Oh, we have Councilor Feliz.
Time starts now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just wanted to briefly speak in favor of the speed camera bill. Traffic violence is a well-documented problem. We see it almost on a daily basis, unfortunately. And I agree with all my colleagues. There are many tools that can be used to stop that traffic violence. One of them is speed bumps, but also another one is speed cameras. For that reason, I'm proudly and strongly supporting the bill to make the speed cameras 24/7. It's one way of helping resolve the problem. It's not the only way, but it is one way to help deter people from speeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Feliz. We will now move into our agenda for today. I'm just going to call back to the clerk. We're moving to our agenda. So the first is our report of special committees.
None.
Reports of standing committees.
Report of the Committee on State and Federal Legislation, Preconsidered SLRs 5 through 12, various home rule messages.
Coupled on general orders, I now ask that the clerk take a roll call vote on all of the items coupled on today's general orders calendar.
Abreu.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Ariola.
Permission to explain my vote.
Yep, go ahead.
The expansion in the use of speed cameras is viewed by the majority of the residents living in my district as little more than a tax levied upon the people of New York. What they are in favor of is seeing more school crossing guards, more protected crosswalks in school zones, speed bumps and four-way stop signs and street lights that can be gotten, echoing the sentiments of many of my colleagues, especially Kalman Yeager and Minority Leader Joe Borelli, in a more expeditious time. This legislation can become a very slippery slope that financially burdens New Yorkers, ordinary New Yorkers, while those who continue to drive recklessly do so with any repercussion by using alterations on their license plates. It is my obligation to represent the will of the majority of my constituency. Therefore, I vote aye on all except for SRL 6, which I vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Aviles.
Can I pass right now? Thank you.
Sure. Ayala. Pardon, Councilmember Ayala.
I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Barron.
Might be excused to explain my vote.
Yes, go ahead.
I almost don't want to do this, but I'm going to respond to the stupid response from my colleague who condescendingly, like, we don't read bills. I read all these bills, and I've been reading bills for 20 years. I'm reflecting because they're not going to say it to you in your face, Speaker, but I get a lot of calls on people are saying they don't want to deal with Democratic conferences the day before a meeting, and especially around bills that are very controversial and need a lot of studying. So these comments were way off. For me, I'm going to read them. You can have a bill the same day. You can give me 5 minutes before I read these bills, which is why I come to my conclusions. So that was an insulting elementary school lecture on what a council member is supposed to do. It has nothing to do with that. I'm reflecting what a lot of people are saying. They don't want to say it to your face because of whatever reasons. Having said that, I want to vote no on SLR 8, no on SLR 9, and because of hearing from my two colleagues, De La Rosa and Sandy Nurse, normally I would be against Parkland, and I don't want to get in the habit of us alienating Parkland, but for what their comments meant something to me, so I will vote yes on SLR 10. I believe that's De La Rosa's district, and yes on SLR 12. I think that's Broadway Junction. De La Rosa always supported us up in the assembly voting against Parkland. And maybe my colleague needs to study more on what Parkland alienation means. But so in that case, I will make those yes votes and a no vote on SLR 11. And aye on all the rest.
Thank you. Botcher. Thank you. Brannan.
Permission to explain my vote?
Yep, go ahead.
I'm voting aye on all. I want to thank the speaker and her team for their robust outreach, doing the different delegation briefings. Very, very helpful, I think, especially for the new members to be able to express their concerns and understand these bills before we get them passed today. It is refreshing to see. It's something that we did not see in the previous council, and I hope it's something that continues and it's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Brewer.
I too want to thank the speaker staff for the very substantive discussion on the cameras. I'm very supportive, but I think it's clearer that people should not lose their license over it. Just so I'm clear, but I want others to know it's $50 per infraction, but it doesn't increase. So it's 50 plus 50. So it's not a huge burden. On the other hand, I do think that my experience is as soon as those cameras get turned off, people start going fast. So I think they will be a deterrent, and then we just have to work. I do get my speed bumps very fast. I just want to let you know. So I do think that there's an opportunity to try to improve DOT and what you need in terms of districts. I also want to say that I'm very jealous of the Bronx with the 4 stops on the metro, because we do have a line and we have tracks on the west side, but apparently we have a very challenging curve at 72nd Street. And for 20 years, I've been trying to get Metro North to go up that. So I'm jealous. Congratulations, and congratulations particularly to the staff of the speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brooks Powers. Councilmember Brooks Powers.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Kaban.
I vote aye on all with the exception of SLR 8, on which I abstain.
Thank you. One moment. Carr.
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Good morning, colleagues. First, I just want to speak in support of the overnight truck stop legislation. I really want to thank the leadership of Chair Brooks Powers and Chair Brave for making this the fore of our deliberations and trying to get this push through Albany so we can have some more effective enforcement. It affects every district, every borough. And I learned that through our budget hearings. Certainly affects mine. But I'm speaking principally about the legislation for the speed cameras, which I'm going to be opposing today, because I think it is really more about revenue than traffic or pedestrian safety. When this program first started, it was really fixed to a relatively close linear distance from the school entrance. The number of cameras was limited, the hours of operation were limited. But even then, DOT found ways to push the boundaries of the program and put cameras in places that didn't correspond to school safety. Since then, the expansion and program changes that have been made in connection with it have made that connection to school safety even more attenuated. What school activities are going on at 9:30 at night, let alone the later hours, per the pending legislation that we're looking to support in Albany today? And despite those past expansions, despite speed limit changes, which are all trumpeted as a success, the answer from Albany is it's not enough. In 2014, program start, there were 250 vehicular deaths in New York City in that year. And then we had 239 in 2020, and we're on track with 59 in the first quarter of this year to outpace 2020. Again, 2020 was a year where traffic levels were reduced because of the pandemic. So there's no spectacular change or any change that we contribute to this program because we've had other traffic mitigations in place by DOT. So the answer shouldn't be to double down on a program whose only proven effectiveness is filling public coffers. And that's why I'm voting no. So I'll be voting no on SLR 6 and aye on the rest.
Thank you. De La Rosa. Councilmember De La Rosa. Yeah, we'll come back. Dinowitz.
I vote yes on all, and I would just say if you don't want a speeding ticket, don't speed.
Thank you. Farias.
I am voting aye on all with the exception of an abstention on pre-considered SLR 8 due to our inability to actually predict the number of FGOs to retire and the full scope of the economic impact for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Feliz.
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just want to reiterate that there are many tools that we can utilize to decrease and hopefully eradicate traffic violence. Speed bumps is one of them, and I'm a big fan of speed bumps because it's a proven way of making sure that people are slowing down. But also another tool is speed cameras. And I've always said that too much of anything can create new problems. Again, I'm a big fan of speed bumps, but I have some concerns and questions about whether too many of them can create new problems. For example, I have questions about whether emergency vehicles, ambulances, NYPD who need to get to a scene, or even firefighters, whether that will create new problems for them having too much of them. So I've always said that we could do a little bit of all of them, speed cameras, speed bumps, and much more. None on their own will truly and fully resolve the problem, but I think a good balance of all of the above will get us closer to fully resolving the problem. So probably voting aye on all, and I want to thank the speaker and her entire staff for answering all questions on the issue of speed cameras, including where they're occurring, at what time of the day they're occurring, what day of the week they're occurring, and everything else. Really appreciate how fast your entire staff was able to get all the information we needed to draw the conclusion that we wanted to draw. Thank you. I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Gennaro.
Pass.
Gutierrez.
I vote aye on all except SLR 8, which I abstain.
Thank you. Hanif.
I vote aye on all with the exceptions of SLR 8 and SLR 9. I am abstaining on both.
Thank you. Hanks.
Permission to explain my vote.
I want to echo the sentiments as a Staten Islander. You know, we have, it's a car culture, but there is something to be said about obeying the speed limit. And this bill is something that I ran on, which is, you know, making sure that people know that there's speed cameras in the vicinity. And that's the reason why I am voting aye on all. Thank you.
Thank you. Holden.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Hudson.
Pass.
Joseph.
Hi, I'm voting aye on all except for SLR 8 and 9. I abstain.
Thank you. Kagan.
I'm voting yes on all.
Thank you. Krishnan.
Aye on all except for SLR 8, where I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Lewis.
Majority Leader, may I have permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
I would like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and fully support SLR 7. Tractor trailers have illegally parked on residential streets. That has been problematic and causing traffic safety across our city, especially in districts like mine, in areas like Kings Highway and Brooklyn that often experiences traffic fatalities. This bill would be a good deterrent to addressing this major issue. I want to thank Speaker Adams for your leadership and Councilmember Abreu. I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Marte.
I vote aye on all except SLR 8, where I abstain. And I also want to thank the speaker's team for meeting with the Manhattan delegation in regards to the speed cameras. It was a great conversation, and I felt like what was said was taken into account. So thank you, Madam Speaker and her team for that.
Thank you. Mealy.
Yes, I would like to vote no on 6, 8, and 9, and yes on all the rest.
Thank you. One moment. Menon.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Moya.
I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Narcisse. Councilmember Narcisse. Okay, we'll come back. Councilmember Nurse.
Abstain on 8, aye on all the rest.
Thank you. Osei.
I vote aye on all except SLR 8, in which I abstain.
Palladino.
I vote aye on all except for SLR 6 concerning the speed cameras. I want to echo what Councilmember Ariola said. The same thing pertains to my district. These speed cameras are everywhere. They are not just in the areas of the school. I know that they're supposed to own, when they were first brought into action a number of years back, I was in full favor of them because they did not overreach. We are at the point now where this is not a cookie cutter issue, in my opinion. Every district is different. And I, like Ariola, have colleagues and our constituents that looked to us while we campaigned. It's about speed cameras and about a backdoor tax. This has become strenuous on their pocketbooks, and 25 miles an hour around schools is perfect. But when you start to branch out beyond the limit, and I really would like these cameras, I'd like to, in my district, I'd like to find out how many cameras there actually are in particular areas, because people come into my office constantly with these tickets, and it's actually causing more accidents because it's slowing and stopping and going, making a traffic flow terribly inconsistent. So I must vote no and honor my constituents as well as the safety in my district. So aye on all except for SLR 6. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Rustler.
Gonna pass.
Okay. Richardson Jordan.
Permission to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
So I want to echo something that's going around with colleagues and maybe bring two pieces together. I think there was a lot of political education around the speed cameras and a real effort to reach out and educate on that. I think with SLR 8 and SLR 9, there was not nearly as much foresight or conversation or just information about those. And I for one was at the 11th hour figuring out what these really are about. I want to urge my colleagues to vote no on SLR 8, not abstain, but no, because the SLR 8 is actually about incentivizing longtime police officers, and the white supremacy that exists in the police department where it is most entrenched does tend to be there. And the newer members of the department tend to be the more progressive and more diverse. So I'm a no on SLR 8, and I'll abstain on SLR 9, which is about borrowing against the pension. I'm fairly, I don't quite have either way on that. So I'll abstain on that one, and I'll be aye on all the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Riley. Councilmember Riley. Okay, we'll come back. Rivera.
I just want to thank all the families and advocates who have rallied with us consistently because of the traffic violence in our city. And I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Councilmember Kagan.
Yes, I just would like to comment on a statement by my colleague, Councilmember Richardson Jordan, about white supremacy in police department.
Councilmember, Councilmember, we can say that.
We're voting right now. Okay.
Councilmember Salamanca.
Aye on all.
Thank you, sir. Sanchez.
Permission to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
I just also want to echo the thanks to the speaker and the speaker staff for the substantive discussion on speed cameras. It was very helpful. And just to add that I wholeheartedly agree with my colleagues, including Councilmember Ariola, on the need for interventions that improve safety at our intersections, like speed bumps, bump outs, islands, crossing guards. All of these things are critical. But I do believe, and I believe the data shows that speed cameras are proven to save lives and to make our streets just a bit safer. So with that, I'm proud to vote aye on that bill. And I want to applaud my colleagues for prioritizing accessibility improvements to their transit stations, Councilmember De La Rosa and others. I think this is really important and a trade-off, you know, a tiny one in some of these cases, but an important one. And with that, I want to vote aye on all with the exceptions of SLR 8 and 9, on which I abstain.
Thank you, Councilman. Schulman,
Aye on all.
Stevens,
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
I just want to be very quickly and say I want to thank the speaker and the speaker staff for the continuous outreach and support around the education of council members on the bills that was presented today. So as far as SRL 6, I just want to say that I had major concerns, especially with the escalations of how it would be punitive and there was no real remediation available for folks who had it, but those issues, which were my major issues, were addressed. And I want to just say thank you for those timely things. But I just want to also say that speed cameras are a tool, but not the only tool, and we should not pretend as if it is. And so thinking about creating legislation, we should also be thinking about having actual holistic approaches that are addressing all the needs and all the issues, because I don't necessarily think that this is getting to what the root cause is. And I have the same sentiments around SRL 7, around the trucks. Fines are not going to be a real deterrent, but understanding that we are in a state that we do need to do something because it is getting out of control throughout the city and it is affecting everyone. But my hope is that we think about holistic approaches and not just punitive approaches, because that is what both of these things are. And so with that, I vote aye on all except SRL 8, which I abstain.
thank you. Councilmember Ung,
Aye on all.
thank you. Velasquez,
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
So when we're talking about traffic deaths and traffic violence, our communities here in the city face a higher alarming rate. We're not saying this is a fix-it-all. We're saying that this is a step, and we're working with advocates. And specifically, we're working with the speaker, and the staff have done incredible amounts of work for outreach and also to listen to our concerns, our community concerns, and actually implement these changes. That's why we're voting it on today, and I appreciate all the work that they have done. So we have to give them credit and kudos. I vote aye on all.
thank you. Vernikov,
I vote aye on all with the exception of SLR 6, which I vote no on. Thank you.
thank you. Williams,
Aye. And permission to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
I vote aye on all, but as mentioned quite a few times already, I'm just hoping that this council and perhaps maybe in partnership with our state colleagues can really look at some comprehensive solutions to address both speeding and truck parking issues.
thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Wong,
I vote aye on all except SLR 8 and SLR 9. I'm abstaining from.
thank you. One moment. Councilmember Lewis,
Thank you. Forgive me. I meant to say I vote aye on all except SLR 8 where I abstain. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Yeager.
I vote aye on all with the exception of SLR 6, but I am quite fascinated by the number of members of this council who hate cops so much that they can't support a pension bill.
Councilmember Aviles,
Hello, can you hear me?
yes,
Yes, okay. I guess permission to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
I just want to
voice my agreement with the concerns and sentiment expressed by Councilmember Stevens and Councilmember Williams about the real need for holistic approaches. However, with that, I will be voting aye on all with the exception of voting no on 8 and 9. And I take also for the record, Councilman Yeager, you don't know what is driving people's votes, so I would suggest you not assume and make statements like that to your colleagues.
De La Rosa.
I vote aye on all except for the SLR 8, which I abstain.
Councilmember Gennaro.
Mr. Leader, I wish to speak on my vote.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, SLR 6 was a tough one for me, and I wanted to hear what my colleagues had to say, and so I will be voting aye on all, and I wish to be associated with the remarks of Council Members Stevens, Feliz, Joanne Ariola, even though she voted the other way, Bob Holden, and Councilmember Kagan regarding his remarks on SLR 6. So I'll be voting yes on all, and I, as I said, I wish to be associated with the remarks of the colleagues that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hudson.
Thank you. I am aye on all with the exception of SLR 8, for which I abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rustler.
I would like to vote aye on all with the exception of SLR 8, for which I also abstain. And I just wanted to thank the speaker and her team for their attentive and diligent outreach regarding speed cameras and the engagement of the full council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Riley.
Aye.
Thank you. Borelli.
Thank you. I just want to begin by asking members not to cast aspersions on members of the city workforce. If there are people that they believed are racist or white supremacist within any organization, any department, any agency, please email me or email the Department of Investigation and present the evidence, and to not just engage in broad painting of the brush to members of our city workforce while we're debating a pension bill. That said, I would like to vote aye on all with the exception of SLR 6.
Thank you. Councilmember Sanchez, do you need to do a vote change?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to change my vote on SLR 9 to an aye after receiving further information.
Thank you. Powers.
I'm voting aye on all. I also would just like to mention that I really want to thank the staff here who took maybe 3 or 4 different opportunities to walk members through a number of the bills, including the speed camera bills that we're voting on today. There were a lot of discussion and dialogue about them and lots of opportunity for members to really engage. And I think that's a noticeable change to me about what's happening here in the council. And obviously on all the other ones, we've had plenty of opportunity also at conference and other places to discuss those and dialogue on those. So I want to thank the staff for taking, and the speaker for taking lots of time to make sure those bills were heard, members were heard, and there was an actual process for members to engage, which is not always the history here in the city council, especially when we get to the end of legislative session. And I will just add that this is, as many colleagues who have spent time in the state legislature know, this is a very crazy time in Albany where lots of bills are getting discussed and debated and passed or not passed. And that leads to every year us being in spring and having to, dialogue on and discuss all these different state home rule resolutions. And that is the process Albany has created on our behalf. And that is why sometimes this moves quite quickly. But even still, with some of these, I think we had immense dialogue and debate. And I really want to thank folks for giving us opportunities to do that, even in a chaotic time up north. So thank you to everyone. I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Speaker Adams.
Thank you. I too will be voting aye on all. And I also would like to thank all of my colleagues who noted the work of this very, very diligent staff that works in our behalf, in your behalf, literally 24/7. When it came to reaching out, I just want to note Director Santa Soriano Vasquez and the entire Albany team, Natasha Carey and Joel Zulo, for all of their hard work on all of these home rule messages. They did exemplary work in working with my colleagues in getting the information out whenever they were called, and even when they weren't called to provide the information, the extensive information, they were right there. So I just want to thank them publicly. And again, I do vote aye on all.
Thank you. Mr. Majority Leader, we just need one moment.
No problem. We'll stand at ease.
Mr. Majority Leader, is there going to be an open discussion?
We will move into general discussion after we do the introduction of reading of bills and we read the votes.
Okay, well, I just want to wave my hand this time because sometimes it's not recognized.
You put up in chat, I see you. We'll get you.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Councilmember Joseph?
We're continuing to stand at ease while we are counting the vote.
Majority Leader, do you have a sense of timeline for vote counting?
Not yet. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Majority Leader, we're ready for the vote tally.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so all items on today's general order calendar have a vote of 50 in the affirmative, 0 the negative, and no abstentions. With the following, pre-considered SLR 6 has a vote of 43 in the affirmative, 7 in the negative, and no abstentions. Pre-considered SLR 9 has a vote of 43 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and 4 abstentions. SLR 11 has a vote of 49 in the affirmative, 1 negative, 0 abstentions. And finally, SLR 8 has a vote of 30 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, and 16 abstentions.
Can you read that SLR 8 one more time? 30 in the affirmative?
30 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, and 16 abstentions.
Got it. All items on today's agenda have passed. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Leader?
Yes.
With the exception of SLR 8, which has been defeated.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Okay, we're now going to head to introduction and reading of bills.
All bills have been referred to committees as indicated on today's agenda.
Thank you. There are no resolutions on today's calendar, so we'll now move into general discussion. As a reminder, please wait until Sergeant at Arms begins the countdown clock before you begin reading your remarks. We have a few individuals signed up, so let's go first to Councilmember Barron, followed by Councilmember Kagan.
Time starts now. Thank you very much, Majority Leader. I just wanted to say, man, my heart is just broken. 19 babies in an elementary school, 10 Black people going shopping. In 2014, Black people worshiping, and we are murdered. And then the murderers are treated with kid gloves or only charged with one charge, even though you killed 10 of us. This madness has got to stop. And then it has to come on the supply side, the manufacturers of these weapons, how it gets into our neighborhood so easily, and then on the demand side. You know, they say guns don't kill people, people kill people. So we have to deal with the mental health, and we have to deal with our own Black community. We have to talk about security, securing ourselves by any means necessary. If the state is not going to protect us, we have to protect us. Then finally, some of you white men in this council need to check yourself. Look in the mirror. When you can get before us after we analytically, intellectually study a bill on police and decide we're going to vote no, that you attach it to our emotions. That's racist. Or that we mention white supremacy and you decide that you're the head of the investigation committee, so we shouldn't say nothing. We have to bring it to you with evidence and proof. Try reading Black history and you'll see enough evidence and proof about white supremacy. And then look at it today. And there's more than enough. We don't have to bring nothing to you. That's white male arrogance that we can't even express this stuff. We have to bring it to you. And then finally, you know, when I couldn't appreciate the staff more. We just need, Speaker, we just need to have not sessions right before council stated. We need to be able to have these Democratic caucuses, you know, weeks before and go material. Certain bills get extensive work and no one appreciates the staff more than I do. It's the leadership of scheduling.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to go to Councilmember Kagan.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I would like to strongly condemn irresponsible rhetoric about police department, specifically NYPD. We can have different opinions about certain bills, pension benefits, and so on. But it's not necessary. I believe it's totally irresponsible to use terms like white supremacy when we are talking about pension benefits for police officers. Because I can give you example, just in Southern Brooklyn recently, police officer stepped down outside of the 60th police precinct and was attacked with a huge knife, almost killed on the spot. That was, I believe, same day when police officer was shot in the Bronx. So like a rhetoric like this and words, irresponsible words like this could lead to the more violence against law enforcement. I believe that it's irresponsible and we have certain responsibility as leaders, as elected officials to express our opinion without using rhetoric like white supremacy in the police department. Our New York City Police Department is very diverse. It has so many police officers of different races, nationalities, and religions, and it reflects our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would any other members like to speak? Please raise your hand. I'll give you one more second to sign up. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll now call on Speaker A.J. Adams to close today's stated meeting.
Thank you, Majority Leader. The stated meeting of May 26, 2022 is hereby adjourned.